Capital Views is sponsored by Northrim Bank, Alaska Oil and Gas Association, ConocoPhillips, and Linden.
Hi, I'm Tim Bradner with Alaska Legislative Digest, and welcome to Capitol Views. And a special welcome today to Bryan, the CEO and Executive Director of Alaska Housing Finance Corporation. So, Bryan, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Tim.
Bryan, at the outset, Alaska Housing Finance Corporation has played a pretty important role in the state in years past. And I can remember a couple of times in years past that you folks have really bailed out the housing markets when there were just sudden adverse events that affected long-term financing for housing. I'm thinking some couple of the recessions we had and implosion of savings and loan and things like that. So anyway, it's good for us to have you guys around. To time to time, we really need something like Alaska Housing. But tell us a bit, just real quickly, what it is HFC does and what's new?
Sure. We do a lot of different things. We have mortgage activity. We are able to provide first-time home buyer and veterans loan programs, rural loan programs that really our competitors, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, don't have. And so we're there for Alaskans. Depending on the year, depending on the interest rates, we have anywhere from 20% to 50% of the mortgages in our state go through AHFC. And we also make sure that when the loans are serviced, we work with Alaskans. So if they're dealing with some financial difficulties, that we work with them. A lot of people don't know this, but we are always one of the 5 lowest states in the U.S. in terms of low foreclosure and delinquency rates. Low meaning very good. And often we are number 1 in terms of 50th. So Alaskans, underwriters make wise decisions on their loans, and Alaskans pay their loans and stay up to date. So that's of great value. And people talk about some of the challenges that our economy has, but it's really great to have a housing market that is stable and responsible. So we're not seeing the huge numbers of foreclosures that some of the other states have seen.
Bryan.
I was going to say, what we also do is run all the public housing in the state. And so we have about 1,600 apartments in 15 communities around the state and about 6,000 apartment housing choice vouchers where we have tenants that go straight into the private sector to landlords. And that's a big part of what we do as well. And then we do a number of other programs that we administer, but those are really the 2 kind of heaviest lifts for the corporation.
Bryan, can we look at the low delinquency rate as an economic indicator? Like during the recession, did we start to see that go up? Is that something that reflects a healthy economy, I guess?
Yeah, we saw it blip up a little bit, but really not much. Just like when you saw home values, in particular on the West Coast and the East Coast after the 08-09 Great Recession, really kind of plummet. We just saw a little blip where it went down 1% or 2 in our state and then got back to even and then kept progressing up like we've seen in other states. So I think there's a couple of things that points out. One is it's a stable, healthy economy that our base is. And the second is we've seen the population in our state getting older. And so when we saw oil prices plummet in the late 80s and we went into a recession in the state, we were such a young state, by far the youngest state, and we saw a lot of people move out. And there was a joke that people, there was a key box that HFC had, and they just threw their house keys in as they hit the border. We don't see that. We see a lot of this state has worked really hard to make sure Alaskans stay here in retirement. And as a result, I think we see a different dynamic, a different age group in Alaska than we did when things were much more transient.
Well, that's significant because our senior population is growing, but on the converse, our demographics are changing. We see a lot of younger people moving out of state to working age population. Is that sort of thing reflected in housing demand that you see, or is it just something that's sort of data that's kind of in the wash so much that it's hard to detect?
Well, no, I really think we do see it. You see a lot of signs across our country, nationally, not just in Alaska, that the lack of affordability of housing is having a real impact on younger people. As an example, if you look back 20 years, the average first-time home buyer was 30. So people are getting into buying their own homes mid-late 20s, early 30s. That was about what you saw. What we see nationally now is it's at 40. So people are going what would you consider a little bit into middle age. And the reason they're doing it is not because they don't want to own a home. It's just the housing prices are at a level that they can't buy. And when somebody buys a home in a community, they set up roots in that community to a much greater degree than if they're renting. So if affordability was better in Alaska and also true nationally, I think there'd be more of an incentive for younger people to be here because they'd be setting up roots that we don't see as much when they're in a rental situation.
Well, Brian, our home prices obviously reflect the cost differential between Alaska and the Pacific Northwest, for example. But are there other factors too? Are home prices more out of whack than sort of comparable states in the lower 48? And what
They're
could be?
actually, interestingly enough, Tim, they're not. If you look at comparing the cost here to the lower 48, especially the West Coast, 25 or 30 years ago, we by far were the most expensive state to live. A huge part of that was our housing was so much more expensive than anywhere else. We still are among the most expensive states to live in, but the housing does not play the role it did before. If you look down the West Coast in most of the major communities, housing's more expensive down there than it is here. So when you see housing costs going up and the price of a new home going up here, it's a concern and it's something to work on, but we haven't seen it to near the degree that you see it in Washington, Oregon, California.
Well, Brian, this is very interesting. Are materials prices here, are we seeing inflationary impact on things like lumber? Obviously, cost of shipping is going up because of the fuel prices, but how does that sort of trickle through, and how quickly do we see that?
Yeah, we see it to a greater degree than just about any other state because we're at the end of the supply chain. The increased cost of the materials to produce, the transportation is worse here than it is there. And so that's one of the many challenges that there's not a lot we can do about it in Alaska. It's what we have to accept as a given and try to work around. Labor shortages would be in that same category.
The cost of labor and the difficulty of getting carpenters and things like that.
Yes, which is a national issue, but I think it's more severe here than it is there, where if somebody lived in Nevada and was looking for work and there was work in California, they could simply drive across the border. Not so easy to pull the Canadians in across the border to help us with our construction shortage needs.
Yeah. Well, Brian, thanks very much. Enjoyed it. We look forward to talking to you more about this, and thanks for being with us today.
Absolutely, anytime, Tim, and thanks for doing these.
Yeah. Thank you, Brian.